A fire aboard the USS Eisenhower has raised new concerns over U.S. naval readiness during ongoing tensions. A second U.S. carrier is reportedly hit by fire, raising questions. Just a laundry accident, or a deeper failure at sea? What started as yard work turns costly for Trump's military machine, with 3 sailors injured aboard the USS Eisenhower during routine operations. Fires, mishaps, and supply issues are now straining U.S. forces. Is Trump pushing discontented soldiers toward an unwanted war? For the second time this year, a fire has been reported on a U.S. Navy nuclear-powered supercarrier. 3 sailors were injured after a fire broke out aboard the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower on April 14. The fire was quickly contained by crew and shipyard personnel at Norfolk Naval Shipyard, according to reports. Navy officials said the injured sailors were treated for minor injuries and returned to full duty. The cause of the fire remained under investigation as authorities reviewed the incident. The carrier had been docked for over a year following its previous deployment to the Red Sea. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower had earlier been deployed to counter Iran-backed Houthi attacks. The ship was undergoing extensive scheduled maintenance during the time of the incident, according to the Navy. Work included major upgrades to propulsion systems and core operational infrastructure. Efforts were also underway to improve crew habitability and onboard living conditions. Combat systems were being modernized to maintain readiness for future missions, according to reports. Aviation support capabilities were also being upgraded during the maintenance phase. Officials said these improvements were critical to ensuring long-term operational effectiveness. The U.S. Navy added that the upgrades would help extend the carrier's service life. Overall maintenance was aimed at keeping the warship fully mission-ready for global deployments. Earlier, a separate fire broke out in the laundry facility of the USS Gerald R during the Iran conflict. 1 sailor was medically evacuated, while 2 others were treated for minor injuries. The setbacks were reported amid claims of limited food capacity aboard U.S. Navy ships deployed in the Middle East. Amid ongoing Middle East deployments, concerns have emerged over food conditions aboard U.S. Navy vessels operating in the region. A Marine aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln reportedly shared images of a meal showing small portions and processed food items. The tray was described as including boiled vegetables, a dry meat patty, and a gray processed meat slab, according to reports. Similar complaints have also emerged from sailors aboard the USS Tripoli, citing limited food supplies during deployment. Service members told families that food was being rationed and fresh produce was not available on board ships. Amid growing reports that the United States is sending fresh reinforcements to the Middle East, the Iranian army has issued a stern and unmistakable warning to Washington, signaling that any further escalation will be met with a forceful response. The Iran army spokesperson has publicly commented on the possibility of a ground invasion by U.S. forces, emphasizing that the country's military is fully prepared and ready to engage any troops that attempt to enter Iranian territory. Brigadier General Mohammad Akramaniyah made these remarks during a tense television interview, as reported by Wana News on April 16, using highly charged language to underscore Iran's readiness and determination in the face of potential American aggression. Akramaniyah disclosed that Iran's army chief has issued clear and uncompromising instructions to all units in the event of a ground invasion by U.S. forces, leaving no doubt about how the country intends to respond. According to Akramaniyah, the Iran army chief explicitly stated that not a single invading soldier should be left alive, reflecting an extremely hardline stance and a readiness to meet any incursion with maximum force. Earlier, Mujtaba's military advisor, Mohsen Rezai, had already stated that he wants the United States to launch an invasion, framing it as an opportunity for Iran to demonstrate its strength and catch the enemy in a carefully prepared trap. Rezai went on to say, "We'll take thousands of hostages, and for each we'll get $1 billion, suggesting a strategy of using captured American personnel as leverage in any future negotiations or confrontations. Iran army units across the country are now on high alert, with commanders treating the current ceasefire no differently from an active wartime situation, keeping all formations at maximum readiness. Fresh reports are emerging of a large-scale military reinforcement into the Middle East instead. The United States is expected to deploy thousands of additional troops to the Middle East in the coming days, according to a Washington Post report on the buildup. This deployment signals a sharp escalation in U.S. military posture just before the fragile US-Iran ceasefire is due to expire on April 22. Officials told the Washington Post that the new movement will include roughly 10,000 soldiers arriving by the end of April, boosting the regional force level. The majority of this force is said to be aboard the aircraft carrier USS George H.W. Bush, which is currently en route to the Middle East. That carrier group alone carries approximately 6,000 personnel, which will significantly bolster U.S. naval strength once it reaches operating zones near Iran. Another major addition is the Boxer Amphibious Ready Group, which is scheduled to arrive by the end of April with about 4,200 troops. This group includes more than 800 Marines along with helicopters and landing craft designed for rapid deployment near coastal areas and islands. Once these reinforcements arrive, the U.S. will have 3 carrier strike groups operating around the region at the same time. These include the USS Abraham Lincoln and the USS Gerald R. Ford, both of which are already involved in the broader military campaign. The expanded military presence is reportedly tied to President Trump's maritime blockade imposed on Iranian shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, officials say the White House is also preparing detailed contingency plans in case diplomacy with Tehran collapses. According to the Washington Post, these plans include potential limited ground operations using special forces units inside Iranian territory. Such scenarios are said to focus on securing Iran's existing uranium stockpiles and conducting landings on key islands near the Strait of Hormuz rather than a full-scale invasion. IRGC intelligence said on April 14 that frustration and hopelessness are spreading among U.S. troops in the region, presenting the claim as a sign that repeated Iranian attacks have taken a psychological toll on American forces. The IRGC attributed that alleged drop in morale to Iran's repeated missile and drone strikes on U.S. military bases across the Gulf, arguing that the sustained attacks have disrupted both confidence and battlefield readiness. Iran International reported that the IRGC made this revelation on the basis of what it described as assessments and field data, giving the claim the appearance of an intelligence-backed internal reading of U.S. conditions. Iran's IRGC intelligence said, and I quote, "Despair and frustration are taking a heavy toll on U.S. forces in the region. Intelligence assessments and some field reports on the condition of U.S. forces in the region suggest that a deep and significant sense of frustration and hopelessness has set in among them. According to these reports, several factors are driving that mood: the repeated and effective strikes by Iranian missiles and drones on military bases, officials in Washington brushing aside field reports and on-the-ground data, constant redeployments, living under unstable conditions, and repeated changes in plans ordered by the President and the Defense Secretary. In just the first month of the war, around 734 resignation or discharge requests were reportedly submitted from bases in 3 Persian Gulf countries. Field assessments indicate that the situation appears to be much the same in other countries across the region. These departures span every level, from senior commanders to the lowest ranks. At the same time, senior military commanders say that under orders from the Defense Secretary, the loss of soldiers is not considered a red line. What matters most is preventing commanders and troops from being taken captive." Unquote.